Life begins at 40, Carl Jung wrote. Until then, you're just doing research. It's a line that lands with the quiet, unsettling weight of a truth you've always known but never dared to speak aloud. It suggests that everything before that point, the frantic scramble of your 20s, the determined building of your 30s, was merely a prologue, a dress rehearsal, a meticulously annotated collection of field notes for a journey that hasn't even begun. You were given a script the day you were born. It was written in invisible ink, but you learned to read it by watching the world around you. You saw the nods of approval, the smiles of encouragement, the subtle punishments of disappointment, and you pieced together the narrative you were supposed to live. Page 1 was education. Get the grades, collect the degree, make them proud. The ink on your diploma was barely dry before you were handed the next page, the career. A ladder, they called it, and you started climbing, your eyes fixed on the next rung, never questioning the direction of the climb itself. Along the way, the script called for a partnership, a union that looked good on paper and sounded sensible at dinner parties. You found someone who fit the description, a person whose puzzle pieces seemed to lock neatly against your own, creating a picture of stability and forward momentum. Together, you acquired the stage props of a successful life, the house with the sensible mortgage that felt like both an anchor and an achievement, the reliable car, the annual vacation photos that proved you were living, truly living. You became a master performer. You learned the art of the polite smile when your soul was screaming. You perfected the interested nod during conversations that drained the very color from your world. You worked harder, stayed later, and sacrificed slivers of yourself on the altar of progress, believing that each sacrifice was an investment in a future of unshakable peace and contentment. You told yourself this was the price of admission. This was what it meant to be a responsible adult, a good partner, a successful professional, a reliable friend. You were building a fortress, brick by painstaking brick, designed to protect you from the chaos of the unknown, from the terror of failure, from the quiet shame of not measuring up. You buried your strange, inconvenient truths. The part of you that wanted to paint or write or disappear into the woods for a month was deemed impractical. The part that felt a profound, aching loneliness in a crowded room was labeled ungrateful. The part that questioned the entire point of the ladder you were so desperately climbing was silenced as a fleeting, dangerous thought. You learned to be a curator of your own life, carefully selecting which parts to display and which to lock away in the basement of your psyche. And for a long time, it worked. The fortress stood. The applause came. The world looked at the life you had built and called it a masterpiece. But then, something begins to shift. It's not a loud, dramatic collapse. It's a quiet hum of wrongness. It starts in the silent moments. The drive home from a job you once coveted, which now feels like a beautifully decorated cage. It echoes in the vast, pristine spaces of the house you worked so hard for, a space that seems to amplify your own emptiness. It appears in your reflection, where you see the eyes of a competent stranger looking back at you, a stranger who has mastered the game, but forgotten why they started playing. This is the dawn of your 40th year, give or take. It's the moment the research phase ends and the bill for your unlived life comes due.
The fortress you built, you realize with a slow, creeping horror, wasn't a sanctuary. It was a prison. The walls you built to keep the world out also kept your true self in. The questions, once easily dismissed, now refuse to be silenced. They are no longer whispers. They are a relentless, deafening chorus. Is this it? Is this the peace I was promised? Why does success feel so much like a performance? What if I climbed the wrong ladder? What if I married a stranger? What if the person everyone loves is a character I invented to survive? This is not a midlife crisis. A crisis is an event, a sudden, violent disruption. This is an awakening, a slow, sacred, and often terrifying unraveling of everything you thought you were. It is the beginning of a quiet, internal rebellion against the script you were given. It is the moment your soul, after decades of polite silence, finally begins to scream. Carl Jung called this process individuation. It's the journey of shedding the persona, the social mask you wear, the collage of expectations and roles you've adopted, to finally meet the self. The self is the whole, integrated you. It's not just the successful professional or the dutiful partner. It's also the wild, creative, wounded, and shadow-filled parts you were taught to hide. The first half of life is about building the persona. The second half is about the courageous, messy, and absolutely essential work of taking it off. But the world doesn't want you to take off the mask. The system you've been a part of is built on predictability and conformity. It thrives on you playing your role, staying on script, and not asking too many dangerous questions. An authentic, integrated individual is a threat to a culture built on fragmentation. A person who is whole no longer needs external validation to feel worthy. They don't need the latest product to fill their inner void or the constant applause of others to know their own value. They are sovereign, and sovereignty is the one thing the system cannot control, market, or manage.
So it gives your awakening a name. It calls it a crisis, to pathologize it, to make it seem like a breakdown rather than a breakthrough. It will tell you you're being selfish, irrational, or reckless. Friends and family who are still deeply invested in their own scripts may look at you with confusion or even anger. Your freedom becomes a mirror, reflecting their own unasked questions, their own unlived lives. They may not do it consciously, but they will try to coax you back to sleep, to convince you to put the mask back on, because your awakening threatens the comfortable, silent agreement of their own world. You will be told you're running out of time, but here is the secret they never wanted you to know. You are not running out of time. You are running out of lies. The life you built before 40 wasn't a mistake. It was a foundation. Every detour, every heartbreak, every silent scream you swallowed, it was all shaping the doorway to this exact moment. You weren't late. You were evolving. The real risk isn't in losing what you've built. The real risk is in wasting the rest of your life pretending to be someone you're not. This second life, your real life, doesn't begin with a grand, explosive gesture. It doesn't require you to burn everything to the ground overnight. It begins with a single, quiet decision. A decision to choose depth over comfort, to choose authenticity over approval, to choose meaning over legacy. It starts when you stop filling every empty space with noise. You turn off the podcast, put down the phone, and sit in the silence. At first, it's terrifying. The silence is where the ghosts of your suppressed self live. But if you sit with it long enough, you begin to hear a different voice, your own. A voice that is not frantic, not seeking, but simply is. You begin to trust your intuition over instruction, your inner alignment over outer applause. You start to move differently. You leave the job that makes you feel invisible, not for a better paying one, but for one that makes you feel alive. You end the performance of a relationship that looks good but feels hollow, not out of anger, but out of a profound self-respect that refuses to betray itself any longer. You start writing the book you never thought you could finish. You pick up the paintbrush you put down 20 years ago. You say no to things that feel like a slow death, and you say yes to things that both terrify and electrify you. It's not always graceful. You will lose people. You will disappoint family. You will outgrow relationships that once felt like forever. You will be misunderstood. But this time, being misunderstood doesn't feel like rejection. It feels like confirmation. It's proof that you are no longer speaking the language of the false self. You are speaking in truth, and truth has a different frequency. Not everyone can hear it, but the ones who can, they are the ones you were meant to find all along. This is the hidden gift of the second life. You stop settling for company that doesn't meet your soul. You become magnetic, not because of your accomplishments or your appearance, but because of the undeniable peace in your presence. A peace that comes not from an easy life, but from a life that is finally, unapologetically your own. You have chosen depth over comfort, and in that choice, you rewrite your future. You look back at the photos of your younger self, not with regret, but with a deep, knowing compassion. You see the person who is trying so hard to follow the rules, to earn their place, to build a life that would be safe and admired. And you want to tell them, you weren't behind, you weren't failing, you were just becoming ready. All of that was research. The quiet death is not what happens when you turn 40. The quiet death is what happens when you ignore the call. It's the slow hardening of the soul, the gradual numbing of the senses. It's the bitterness that seeps in when you live a life that betrays your own potential. It's the exhaustion of the constant internal war between your truth and your routine. You tell yourself you're lucky, and maybe you are, but gratitude without growth is just a beautiful form of sedation. You are here to evolve, and if you ignore that call, life doesn't just stay still, it starts to push back. The body breaks down, the mind clouds with anxiety. The relationships dry up, not from drama, but from a profound disconnection. You're still physically present, but the real you, the one haunted by its unlived life, has been absent for years. But if you answer it, if you turn and face the disquiet, you begin the process of reclamation. You start to gather the pieces of yourself you handed over to others for safekeeping. Your fire, your curiosity, your untamed voice, all for a sense of belonging that was never truly yours. You realize you don't need a crisis to justify change. You just need to give yourself permission. And once you give yourself that permission, you become the sign you were waiting for. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity. You stop negotiating your truth. You look in the mirror and see someone who is not just competent, but alive. A person who carries their shadows not as a burden, but as evidence of what they survived. You know who you are now, not because the world told you, but because you finally listened to the voice you spent a lifetime ignoring. You are not too old. You are right on time. You didn't miss your moment. You are the moment. And you don't need to catch up. You only need to go inward. Because everything real, everything sacred, begins after you stop pretending. So you stand here now, on the threshold, not ahead, not behind, but exactly where you're meant to be. The research is complete. The stage props can be put away. The script can be ceremoniously burned. The only question left to ask is not what the world wants from you, but what your soul has been waiting for you to become. If your real life begins now, who are you finally ready to be?